purpose of this project, visitors, you're very lucky, members, as always, John's an excellent presenter. This project is called Club Leadership because the purpose for this project is for the member to practice writing and delivering a speech that inspires others. So it is an inspirational speech, a bit different, I think, to what I do. A bit different. Similar message. That's what it is.
Thank you, Lana. And
Time. I think.
It's timing. Yes. 12 to 15 minutes.
How would you like to wait?
12, 13, 15.
Cool. John Hewson, Club Leadership, John Hewson.
In 2 weeks' time, 3 weeks' time, at our next club meeting, we are scheduled to have our club elections. The club, Toastmasters, as a general organisation, operates on the financial year, July 1 to June 30. So, for the new year, Toastmaster year, July 1, we are looking for the new club executive who will manage the club. Tonight, I want to give you a little bit of an outline of what that leadership responsibility, those roles, entail. Because I want to try and inspire new leaders. I want to be able to inject enough enthusiasm in members of our club now to be able to step up and take on some leadership roles within the club. And the presentation will be going up on our YouTube account, and I'll be encouraging those members who are apologies tonight to be able to take this in and think about it seriously. There are 7 official roles within the club membership, and those roles really fulfil virtually like a small business, from the CEO to the logistics manager, and most of those roles in between. It's a very clear structure that Toastmasters developed many 100 years ago in terms of how a club, an area, a district operates. The vote that we have, or the nomination, normally comes down to nomination of roles, but it's very encouraging actually when we do actually have more than one person stand for a position and we go to a vote. Doesn't happen very often. Maybe that's a shame, but nevertheless, it is an opportunity for people to put their name forward for a role within the club. To give you an idea of how the structure works, it goes along with the voting routine. It starts with the election of the president. The president is like the CEO of the organisation. They're the public face of the club. Their responsibility is to oversee and encourage the general executive in their individual roles. It's also a role that requires stepping outside of the club to a certain extent, and that is because they attend what are called area council meetings, which is a meeting between the presidents and the VPEs generally, but not exclusively, of the other clubs in our area, the other 4 clubs that make up our Area 6. That can also then extend to responsibilities that may be offered to you in terms of judging or other roles within our Lachlan division. So it does mean that the president takes on a slightly wider role. But in fact, the president's role is really quite simple, because you're just helping the other people on the executive to perform their roles and encourage them. So it's a role of supervision, encouragement, and nurturing. That's primarily what the president needs to be able to do. The really busy role, and I don't want to frighten people about this because we've had some excellent VPEs. Vice President Education is like the managing director. They're the person who actually makes it happen. And as Lana explained tonight, the main responsibility is preparing and distributing the agenda. And once you get into a routine, way in which Lana does it, where you send out maybe an advance agenda and then get the feedback and then send out deliver the final agenda to the meeting at night. That once you get into that rhythm and you're organised, it does take on a less overwhelming status in the operation. But the VPE is also responsible for encouraging some creativity within our operation, not just managing the meeting as we saw tonight with the managing of the agenda, getting people to fulfil those roles, but also injecting some interest and stimulation into the way in which we meet. So we have special events punctuated throughout the year, because the main purpose of the VPE is to encourage members to achieve their goals, to achieve their operation in taking on roles in the meeting, but also getting through their speeches. Because until such time as you start to really get into doing the speeches, you won't be getting the maximum effort and the maximum benefit out of being a Toastmaster. So the Vice President of Education really does steer that direction for the individual members. The next role down in the order of things, not in lesser priority, but in the order of things, is the Vice President Membership. Now, the Vice President Membership's role is virtually like the Human Resources Manager within an organisation. They're taking care of visitors when they turn up and encouraging them to participate in the meeting, but also making sure that they're cared for in a meeting. And prior to that, responding to inquiries that come in. And we're pretty good at the response rates, because sometimes, as Moon has experienced, you get multiple people responding to you. Better multiple people respond than no one respond. So we always try very much to respond to people in our different roles and say, yep, we'd love to see you. Here's what you need to know about the meeting before you turn up. And also, at the tail end of their visit, to follow people up. Because if you just come to a meeting and go away and never hear about anything else ever again, what are you going to do? You're going to look elsewhere. So it's very important that the person in that role is nurturing and caring for visitors and even new people, just getting them settled into their roles, just checking up, everything going okay, you understand what's going on. The next role is Vice President Public Relations. I've always had an issue, coming from an advertising background, I've always had an issue with the fact that Toastmasters is called public relations, because that's a very, very narrow field. It's actually the marketing manager of the organisation, making sure that people coming into the club, visiting it, people who are already members, understand how they are the product. They are the product that's positioned to help people both grow within the organisation, but also understand why they have joined Toastmasters. And that's done by promoting the club both externally and internally. Promoting us out into the wider community and looking for, most importantly, looking for new opportunities to be able to get the message out into the community. And that's one of the toughest parts of the role of the marketing manager, is where can we tell people about our club? Promoting things internally is also about promoting some of the interesting things that the Vice President of Education comes up with in terms of events, socials, etc. Promoting those things, encouraging people to attend them. But one of the most important aspects of the Vice President of Public Relations role is maintaining the brand of Toastmasters. Making sure that we don't deviate from the brand. Because if you deviate from the brand in a commercial environment, there can be repercussions. If you were to start inventing a new brand when you're working at a Commonwealth Bank, the Commonwealth Bank would not be very happy. The same thing applies with the Vice President of Public Relations responsibility when they're promoting us externally and internally. And of course that involves things like social media and other avenues. The next role is the treasurer, basically the chief financial manager. They're the person who's responsible for managing our finances. It's not a hugely complicated thing, but it needs to be done properly. Why? Because it's someone else's money. It's very important that we take a responsible attitude towards the funds that we operate this club with. And as a not-for-profit, we're not meant to make a profit, but we are meant to be responsible and make sure that there is sufficient funds to be able to keep the club running. Part of that role involves developing a very simple, easy to follow, even for a numerically dyslexic person like myself, to be able to understand the money in and the money out. And presenting that to the club in a more formal setting, we set aside a business meeting for members, and once we have a quorum, we then can vote on whether we approve the budget for the coming 12 months. It's the responsibility of the treasurer to also present financial updates to the club executive meetings, which are held, chaired by the president on a regular basis throughout the year. And at the end of the year, perhaps give a bit of an overview, a bit of a review of how we have gone with the budget that was proposed. The next role, it's a really interesting role actually, and that's the secretary of the club. And the secretary, it is the secretary of the organisation. Primarily responsible for managing the records of the club. Now we don't generate, some clubs do actually, but we don't generate a massive amount of paperwork in our meetings. We have the secretary will take minutes and produce minutes and file them of executive meetings so that we have a record of what the executive are planning to do, have done, things they have and have not achieved. But the secretary also has voting rights within district and can, with the president, be able to make decisions that affect us as a club outside of the club. So it's actually quite a responsible role in that regard. So it's a role that requires someone to be fairly organised and timely in the way in which they manage the records and keep files. Now we're about to do a bit of a transition from the dinosaur era into the 21st century. We're going to be going off print and putting the whole thing up on the cloud. And that's going to be a process. It'll take a little time. It'll start with this executive and it'll become part of the role of the incoming executive to get that transition in place. But we have a Google Drive and we'll be moving all of our records up onto that Google Drive, and members of the executive will have access to that. The next role is the Sergeant at Arms. Now, to our visitors tonight, a minor apology. I think this would have to be the first time in a long, long time that we didn't start exactly on time tonight. But we have issues because of our venue, which is just a struggle we have to put up with. Getting access into this building sometimes can be a bit complicated. But the Sergeant at Arms role is to primarily care for any equipment that we have. And you saw we've got a lectern, we've got banners, sometimes we'll have trophies, other things that need to be maintained. Because of the fact that we're in this building, we have our kit bag over there, which has proved to be quite useful in terms of keeping our kit together and making it possible to come in, set up and get the meeting underway. The operation of setting up and packing up is not the sole responsibility of the Sergeant at Arms. They're there to guide and assist people and direct people, but they're not there to do it on their own. And oftentimes that becomes a problem with some clubs where the poor old Sergeant at Arms is the person who has to come in, set everything up and pack up afterwards. In our club, Sergeant at Arms is not Robinson Crusoe. They do get assistance from the rest of the club. There is another, shall we say, unofficial role, because it's not listed by TI as an official role. It means that you don't have access, like the rest of the executive have access to our club data online with Toastmasters International, and that is the immediate past president. In training, when I'm talking to presidents, I tell them you've just signed up for a 2-year commitment, and you do get some pretty strange looks, because the vice president, the immediate past president's role is to be there as a mentor and a support for the executive, to be a sounding board if required. Not there to run things, not there to tell people how to do it, but just there as a resource, brains trust, if you like, of how things were done, so that people can say, well, how are we going to now do it into the future. So the immediate past president can attend those club executive meetings, can be called upon to fill in gaps where gaps occur. If someone's having the wonderful opportunity to take 6 weeks overseas and there's a role in the executive empty, the vice president, the immediate past president is able to step into that role because they do know the role pretty well. And finally, there is one last role that we have, is again, an unofficial role, and that is a mentor coordinator. Someone who can set up the mentoring process and maintain it, and be able to facilitate new members into the mentoring program should they wish to be part of it, and just keeping track of all of that. Sometimes it's a shared role. This past 12 months it's been a shared role. It can be a little bit complicated if you're not a member of the executive, because you have to keep asking the executive, what's the latest with this on our roles. So there are a couple of areas that we cover with people who are voluntary, and that's the point I want to make in closing. Being a member of the club executive is a voluntary role. So therefore, the priority is for yourself to not be burnt out, to not get to a point where you think, I can't handle this, it's getting me down, I'm out of here. You need to be able to pace yourself, and you need to be able to ask others to help when needed. And it doesn't need to be another member of the executive. It could be someone that you're thinking, they might make a good member of the executive going forward. So be thinking about being part of running this great club into the future. We'll be looking for some new blood to come onto the executive in the roles. And I think with the outline I've just provided, I'm sure there are roles there that you think, yeah, I think I could probably do that. So that's what I'm hoping you will have got from tonight, is a sense that it's not overwhelming, it is possible, and it's very beneficial for the other aspect of Toastmasters, which is your leadership growth. So be inspired to think about taking on a role in the upcoming elections. Information will be coming out very shortly about the procedure at our first face-to-face meeting in May. Thank you, Toastmasters.
Now we're on to the evaluation. So our first evaluator for this evening is Karini, evaluating Mark's speech.
Wow, that was really unexpected from Lana. It's been for a while to listen to Lana's speech. Especially Lana is going for a district level contest. So my evaluation is focusing on 3 areas. So the very first one is the structure, and the second thing is stage attitude. Because here the hall is smaller. When you go to district level, the stage is going to be really big. So I want Lana to, how she can handle the stage attitude. And then the third thing is speaking voice, especially for the contestant. Let's see how Lana executed and mixed all these elements into her speech. I really liked Lana's opening with the huge voice and captured all our attention. The structure was easy to understand because she chose her personal story, and in her speech she just injected some punchy statements. For example, every single step is calculated. captured my attention. Wow, she's going to say something. And living with fear, that's a beautiful sentence. We are living with fear. And the other one, push yourself into the pool and see the pool of opportunities is waiting for you. So these are the sentences is really stood out when Lana was giving presentation. When you go to stage attitude, as you can see, Lana is not afraid of using Toastmasters stage. She was freely moving from left to right, purposefully. I really like that one. Very required. So please continue doing that stage utilization. And then voice, my God, for her speech, I was thinking her speech comes under inspirational or emotional or storytelling or humorous. She put all the elements into her one speech to inspire us. So that's very, very good, Lana. When Lana mimicked about her grandma, I was thinking, oh my God, where she get this thing? So it was really stand out to get big tick from the judges. Now, come to the point of improvement. You did the whole story well. Come to the point of improvement. Use pause, especially for when you say living with fear. Leave some pause so that people can take your information, digest and ready to listen to your next point. And then the second place, your opening was, when you did your opening, the energy was really high. When you finish your closing line, for example, push yourself into the pool and the pool of opportunities waiting for you. That side, I know you wanted to slow down little bit, that's absolutely fine, but you can use your hand, just a pool of opportunities are waiting for you instead of hands down, so that the energy level will be maintained from opening to the end. So in conclusion, Lana's speech structure was good, stage attitude and speaking voice, just try to implement the energy, maintain the energy level as well as pauses here and there to make your speech more like a district level contest. You'll get through. Thanks, Lana. I was really enjoying that. If anybody has any other feedback for Lana, please feel free to give her maybe after the